Hi guys, welcome back to my kitchen again. I'm doing another festive bake today. Well, I say festive bake, it is a festive bake, but it's also not a festive bake, if you see what I mean. Probably not, I'm not making any sense. Okay, so what I'm going to be making today is Gingerbread Millionaires Shortbread. Now, you can have this at any time of the year. And it'd be sort of like perfectly acceptable for the non-Christmas lovers, because gingerbread men are kind of what do we call it? They're kind of universally accepted around the year, aren't they? Like, people have gingerbread like all the time, particularly little kids. Like my little kids, we buy the little mini gingerbread men people, and they love them all times a year. So in that ways it can be all like an all year thing, and in other ways it could be Christmas, because gingerbread's like really associated with the Christmas time. And also, if you really want to bling it up and make it like super Christmassy, you can buy like Christmassy sprinkles and things like that to kind of put on the top to make it look even more festive, as it were. Okay, so we're going to get into the making and baking. I will pop in the description of the video below details of the recipe, so that if you want to make it as well, you don't have to grab your pen and paper and write it down while you're watching. You can just grab that and rock and roll with it. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera around and we'll get going. Okay, let's get making. The first thing you want to do is preheat your oven, and you want to preheat that to 180 degrees C while you're doing the next bit. You'll see that I put my food processor on top of my scales. My scales weren't playing ball, so I then changed it over to a dish, just in case you're wondering. So I'm making this vegan-ish. We tend to be, we're vegetarian, but we tend to be more on the vegan side. But I couldn't actually get all the ingredients sent to me in my weekly food delivery shop. So it's kind of a bit of it's kind of a mixed match, but you can use whatever your preference is, obviously. So the first thing you need is 200 grams of either soft butter or the vegan spread equivalent. I just use the pure sunflower spread. And you don't have to wait for that to be soft then, because it's, already good to go. And then you need 100 grams of caster sugar, and you want to just mix those up together. You want to cream them together. You can either use a food processor, food mixer, or just, do it by hand, good old fashioned bowl and spoon, whatever works best for you. So yeah, cream those together. And then this is the fun bit. You want to add your spices into the mix. So this is what gives it the gingerbread flavour. And you can play around with your spices. If you don't have a preference for one, or you want it spicier or whatever, you can just play around with the quantities. It doesn't actually matter. But basically, I put in 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. And you can also put in some allspice as well if you want to. But as I say, yeah, just play around with those quantities. If you don't like so much ginger, then don't put it in. Whatever works for you. You can actually, as the recipe goes on, you can actually add spices to your caramel and spices to your chocolate topping if you want to. I don't, because I think it's too much, too gingerbread heavy, and I like the sweetness of the other flavours to come through more. So I just add it to the shortbread mix. So then you also want to add in 275 grams of plain flour, and then you want to put it back in, put it in your mixer, mix it up, or in your bowl, whatever, and yeah, mix it all together. It should make a fairly dry, crumbly mixture. I actually I don't know what happened. I kind of over-whizzed mine a little bit, so it was a bit more like dough, but it actually worked out absolutely fine. I don't know, I can make shortbread most of the time, except on camera, obviously. Next up, you want to get your baking tray, dish, whatever it is that you're you're using to cook this in. And you want to line it with some baking paper. I use the Bako foil non-stick baking paper. That's just what I've got. It just lasts me forever and ever and ever. So yeah, I've never basically bought any others. You just want to line the bottom of your dish and make sure that the paper goes up the edges. You really want to do this for lifting it out afterwards. Believe me, if you don't do it, it's super duper tricky. And yeah, you just, once it's cooked, you can literally just grab the paper from the sides and just pick it up. So do not think you can bypass this step. I mean, you can, but you are going to be then like trying to dig out your shortbread mix afterwards. So then you want to get your dough. As I said, mine wasn't as dry and crumbly as I usually make it, but more like a cookie dough. But that's okay. So regardless of what your dough looks like, don't give up on it. Just keep going with it. You want to put it into your baking dish, and you want to like squeeze it, push it all down. You want to make sure it's down firm and that it kind of reaches out to all the sides and everything. Pack it in, especially if it's crumbly. You really want to push it down and pack it down tight. And then that's it. You can just whack it in the oven, and you want to cook it for about 20 to 25 minutes until it's golden on top. Don't worry if you feel it and it's still quite soft and spongy. It will dry and harden as it cools down. So yeah, that's the next step. And then we're on to making the caramel. So as I said, I am making the vegan version. I'll also pop in the description of the video, there'll be a link to the recipe. There'll also be the non-vegan alternative if you want to make that as well. So you need to get a saucepan, and you need to weigh out yourself 125 grams of your butter or spread. Obviously, if you're not vegan, you can still do this vegan option. That doesn't make any difference. Yeah, so 125 grams of your soft butter or your spread, add that to your saucepan. Then you'll need 125 grams of light brown sugar. Now, light brown sugar, I had a substitute for that with golden caster sugar, I think it was. And I decided to rock and roll with it, and it worked absolutely fine. So basically, just 125 grams of sugar is absolutely fine into your pan. Then you want a tin of Carnation condensed milk. Now, Carnation do make a vegan option. As I said, they didn't send it. They didn't send it to me in my shopping. I got a substitute for the non-vegan one. Obviously as well, I mean, not obviously, you might not know this, but Carnation do also make caramel in a tin, which you can use if you don't want to make your own caramel. The only thing I will say is the caramel in the tin is a lot softer and therefore becomes a lot squidgier in your shortbread. So if you want something a bit firmer, particularly if you want to cut it up and take it out with you on lunchboxes and things, making the caramel is the best option, the best way to go. When I made shortbread with my girls, I used it out of a tin because when you heat it up, it does get so very hot, and if it splashes back on you, it can burn. So yeah, have a think about that, whether you want to make it with kids or not, that kind of thing. So the condensed milk goes into the pan. Then you want to get yourself like a mug or a bowl or something. And in that you want to put 3 to 5 tablespoons of corn flour. For me, it was more rather than less. And then you want to mix in 5 tablespoons of soy cream, and you want to make a paste, a thick paste. Now I ended up adding a bit more in to make the paste. Now this is really important because this is the corn flour mix is what's going to thicken up that caramel and help it to set. And you'll also need to add in a pinch of salt. Once everything's in the pan, you then want to move it over to the hob and you want to boil it, put it on a high heat until everything melts. Then you want to leave it to bubble away for about, well, sort of depends really. Basically 116 degrees, if you've got a a thermometer, 116 degrees, or until it's a soft boil, if it says that on your thermometer, or until it's nice and thick. You sort of know when it's like a good consistency. You don't want to let it burn, so you need to keep stirring and whisking the entire time. As you can see, the consistency that I've got mine at, and the colour, it should be the colour of caramel. It basically should look like caramel. And then once that's reach that temperature, reach that kind of thickness, just leave it to take it off the heat and leave it to cool for a couple of minutes. And then you want to pour it all over your shortbread, and then you want to leave it to rest, to cool. I did my first part of my recipe in the evening, and then I did the second part of the recipe, the topping, in the morning, so it was nice and set. So for the topping, you just need about 200 grams of, or 200 to 300 grams of chocolate. If you're vegan, you may want, you want to choose a vegan chocolate. I'm just using Cadbury's Dairy Milk. You just want to break that up, and you want to melt it. Now I melt mine in the microwave, but obviously you can do yours over a pan of boiling water, whatever works for you guys. I'm just a bit of I just do it in the microwave. Yeah, so it's nice and melted. Once it's melted and runny, you then just pour it over the top of your shortbread. Whilst the chocolate is still ready, chocolate sets pretty quickly. You then want to go ahead and decorate or add your toppings. As I said in the making of the shortbread, you can add more flavour and spices to either your caramel or your chocolate if you would like to. I personally don't. I like the sweetness as it is, but yeah, you can if you want to. Obviously, you can also make your own gingerbread men if you would prefer. I've used shop-bought ones just because this is it's not that much of an in-depth recipe, but it is, you are already making quite a lot and doing quite a lot of things. So yeah, I've bought, I just bought like the mini, McVitie's mini gingerbread men. So I just use those to decorate the top. And you want to do that whilst the chocolate's still soft, just press them in. But yeah, if you want to make your own gingerbread men, gingerbread people, then obviously go ahead and do that as well. You probably want to do that the night before as well, or so that you've got them ready to decorate when the shortbread is ready. If you need a gingerbread recipe, there's one in the Mrs. Brimble's Happy Place on Facebook. And I'll also put it in the From the Workshop Facebook group as well. So if you guys need that, and I'll try and put it on Instagram as well, on both of my accounts, Mrs. Brimble's and From the Workshop, so that you've got it there. So yeah, well, basically you can decorate this however you like. I put the gingerbread men on top just because it's a gingerbread millionaire shortbread. I didn't have any Christmas sprinkles. I did have some normal sprinkles, which I did add because both of my daughters are big sprinkles fans. But yeah, you could just decorate it however you like, really. Sprinkles, gingerbread men, whatever. I had a few gingerbread men left in the little packet after putting them on the top, so I just crushed them up and used them as used the crushed up gingerbread as sprinkles. And then you want to put it in the fridge at this point, make some room, put it in the fridge, and leave the chocolate to fully harden. Once the chocolate's fully hardened, grab your shortbread by the paper and just pull it out of your dish. Put it on a chopping board or a cutting surface and use a big knife, and then just cut it up into your pieces, and then store it in a tin. You want to try and keep the tin in a fairly cool place, because obviously the chocolate and the caramel can melt. Or you can just leave it and just cut it up as and when you want it. Store it in the fridge. So it keeps nicely in airtight containers for a few days. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed, like a little seasonal recipe, good for autumn, good for Christmas, and hey, let's face it, just really good for all year round, really. But obviously, if you used like autumnal sprinkles or Christmas sprinkles, then you can really make it festive. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy this recipe and give it a go.